Okay, so this panel discussion will look at the future of satellite technology and beyond. That's what we're going to discuss. Now, we are going to have a conversation with the panel, but I also want to bring you in. So if you feel like you have something that you can contribute to, or you have a point that you want to make, just raise your hand and I'll bring a microphone to you. Also, at some point, we can also have some questions from the audience. And please feel free. We want to have an honest conversation. So Rakesh told me anybody can ask any question. So don't be scared. Don't be afraid to ask a question. Okay. So maybe I don't know whether you've all introduced yourselves properly. Maybe we start from there. Yeah? Apart from Lindsay, I think. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Is it on? Yeah. Okay. I'm Hannes Smith. I'm from South Africa, with a company currently called StratoSat. I've been in the satellite industry since 1995. So I've seen...
So you're a geo guy.
I'm a geo guy, and
Okay.
I'm addicted to the technology. So I will always... I'm a firm believer of this technology will stay. But yes, seen a lot of changes in the industry, seen a lot of people coming and going, and seen a lot of faces just changing around. But yeah.
Yeah, my name is Vaneet, and I manage the business for Tata Communications for Middle East, Africa, and Central Asia, based out of Dubai. Been in with Tatacom for almost 15 years now, and we, as I mentioned earlier in my introduction, I mean we still are a satellite operator in India, a licensed satellite operator, and we operate by the name of Tata Sky and another brand as well. But cautiously, ever since we started building our submarine cables, the focus onto satellite became a little less, or rather I should say the dependency on the partners increased from a satellite standpoint, because we were using satellite only for the far-flung areas where the fiber doesn't go, or as a backup wherever required in Middle East and Africa. And because India was in the past 10 to 15 years has been heavy on the fiber to be laid even in the rural areas, every nook and corner. Despite that, I think there are still areas in India where this kind of a solution, the LEO would fit in. Latency was always a concern, as you would know, in the geo space, which I guess has been addressed to a very large extent in this LEO environment which we are trying to build. And having said that, I think exciting times ahead, and look forward to working closely with iSAT in Africa through our partnership with them.
Richard, please join us.
Hi.
You can sit here.
Oh, okay. My name is Gershon Gitonga. I work in Safaricom. In the planning, I head planning section dealing with transport, radio, and core. For satellite, I've worked with satellite for around 20 years. When Safaricom launched, among the key sites that were there was we had satellites. Because of lack of very many sites to do microwaves, we had to do satellite as part of the initial rollout. So there are places that right now have microwave or fiber, but they started as satellite sites. Parts of Masai Mara, actually the whole of Masai Mara was satellite, had around 4 sites. The northern part of Kenya, the whole of it was satellites. Mandera, Wajir, for those who know the Kenya region. Those are the days we had close to 100 sites satellite. Right now we have around 28. We have 2 providers. This is Intelsat and Spacecom, who provide for us the satellite services. So I panned my first satellite 2001. So I was telling someone here I've burned more than 600 dishes. And I've not hung the boot. So it's an interesting time to see the LEO coming in, which is giving us a transformative change in the way we communicate and in the way business is done. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you all know Richard, right? Okay. But you can say hi.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, so my first question really is, it's probably almost like a non-question, but I still want to ask it. Looking at the development in satellite, because as I started in the morning, 3 maybe 4 years ago, nobody actually gave satellite any chance to compete with technologies like fiber. And now there's what we're seeing as a potential disruptor. So is LEO really a disruptor for the existing technologies, including GEO? Is it a disruptor?
Yes, definitely it is. It's a disruptor for many reasons. Well, we will provide low latency and everything, so that's good. It's well, in it will be a disruptor eventually for when we get to Gen 2, because we'll provide gigabit capacity when we get to Gen 2. With the evolution and what we're seeing in terms of these networks that are being deployed today, everyone can see they're not a one-size-fits-all solution. They're designed as a point-to-multi-point system. They are asymmetric in nature, but they're making the access to the network that little bit more bearable and easier, and unlocking areas where you would previously discount deployment, and you would delay a customer deployment for 6-12 months until the fiber gets there or the microwave eventually rolls out. This, at a cost point, unlocks a solution already. So,
yeah, I want to add to that because, I mean, we have tried, constantly selling satellite communications. That's the name of the business we're in. And there's certain customers that has got a need that sits in a remote area that has not got access to fiber, has not got access to microwave links. It's just too remote. But the application that they use requires a low latency communication system. We have tried all the tricks in the book in GEO to try and get them to make it work, and it just wasn't successful. Now those customers are a reality. They will not even consider, having fiber or microwave, because the cost of putting that infrastructure there would outweigh putting a LEO terminal down by far. And the reliability issues that we're having nowadays, and South Africa is maybe in a unique situation as far as our current electricity supply situation is, but we have what we call load shedding, and we have areas that are every day probably with a time frame of about 4.5 hours per time getting switched off from the grid, and so it gets moved from area to area. So now you have your terrestrial systems that relies on power all the way through. You might have power, but somewhere in the middle there's not power. You're down. So it does not mean that you can, I can put a backup generator. Yes, I can do all of these things at my own premises and maybe at my head office, but I have no control on what's happening in between. In a satellite environment, nowadays people have, in the interim, start using more GEO as a more reliable transmission medium, but LEO is just going to change the game, and they will probably then realize that it could be the primary ways of communication for them going forward, and drop the terrestrial circuit by default because it's not reliable. satellite is still a more reliable.
But does that mean also dropping geo?
I think the pricing is going to make the decision. For the guys who's currently on geo versus LEO, I think there's going to be a price comparison on that. But the performance and the amount of capacity that now that you can get on LEO versus geo would probably also be a very high decision factor.
Okay. Vanit?
Yeah, I agree. It will be, despite coming from, we called a competition. Actually, we are not. So we strongly feel it is going to be a disruptor, and it will complement the providers like us big time, opening up new areas of business which we are not able to cater today. One, of course, as I mentioned earlier, is the sites where we cannot serve today can be served. So that extends my reach from a reach standpoint in various countries. And also new areas like maritime, for example, was not our play anymore. Now it would be with a SIM-based and a LEO-based kind of an offering. And also aviation, where we are strong only on the ground, but not when the aircraft is in the sky. So that opens up a lot of new business avenues for us. So, and from a disruption standpoint, I think the speed at which technology is evolving today, even if there are limitations around bandwidth or what more you can do, I'm sure it will evolve faster than it has evolved till now, to be able to cater to higher bandwidths, lower prices, even lesser latencies, probably with some terminal equipments, etc. So and we are really excited about the LEO journey, which has just started, I would say.
Gershon, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I have something to add. I believe it will be a disruptor because from an operator point of view, currently we operate on the geo, the places which are quite remote. And geo operates on spectrum. So we convert spectrum to capacity. And the key thing there is getting the right capacity. Now look at a setup whereby you have to load out 4G, 5G, which are bandwidth hungry. You'll pay a lot of money for you to get the right capacity on geo to give the right quality of service to the customer. So I believe it is a disruptor. And one of the key points that will determine is the entry point, the price point for the LEO. Then that will really see whether it will be a game changer between geo and LEO. If the price is good, absolutely, it's a game changer. Number two is reliability. Geo is very reliable. We've had 100% reliability for years and years. So if LEO can give the same, then I can guarantee you it will be a good solution and a good alternative. The downside of it, if LEO is not reliable, it's on and off, then customers out there will not take it that you are not available. We'd rather pay a premium for availability. So I think the key thing is price and availability of the service.
I would say that it's already disrupted in certain markets. So if I look at maritime for the past 12 months, buying decisions have started to be delayed on your traditional VSAT terminals. People are waiting for the new technology. So it's already disrupting existing network operators. And as you see in the marketplace with network operators merging, signing JVs from these traditional GEOs to LEOs, they know where the wind is changing. It is a major disruption to the market, and that's a great thing for the end user and a great thing for connectivity in general. So it's happening and it's inevitable. It's just it's going to come a lot quicker than we anticipated. It's been pretty quiet for a number of years, but now in these past 12 months the momentum has just shifted, and OneWeb are here. It's in action. People are seeing it and it's working and it's fantastic. From a price point of view, the GEOs are going to have to adapt. They will be back up now. So certainly in maritime, the airtime plans that they were selling at a premium will have to go, starting to drop to the lowest priority. So they're going to have to change their business models, because the LEO will be the primary system, whether it's on a flat panel or a parabolic. That's how I see it.
Okay, so from and this is probably yourself and the Gershon. How do you see this interplaying with say 5G? Do you think the LEO service will disrupt 5G or complement 5G from a network perspective?
I think Leo will complement 5G. I'm saying Leo will complement the 5G in the sense that they'll provide the backhaul for the cellular sites. So that is one of the key things that we are looking for. On the other hand, Leo, depending on the model that the providers, the Leo providers, the likes of OneWeb, Starlink, how they come with, they can come to disrupt, because if they're able to get to an individual, to the consumer, and they get to the right price, then why would you need 5G unless for mobility? Yeah, so if let's say you have a business here, you might decide, fine, I don't even need fiber, I just need the Leo satellite, just a receiver, you get it. But you cannot substitute with 5G, because 5G gives you that mobility, which the Leo can't give you based on how you provision it.
As of now?
As of now, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but maybe Gen 2, as Nish was saying, probably you might reach there. But at present, with your Gen 1, it will not disrupt as we see. But we are seeing it complementing and helping to give 5G to the most remote areas. Yeah.
Nancy, you have something I can say?
I think in Gen 2 we'll probably use 5G to virtualize our network and provide higher speeds, I guess, but I'm not sure at the moment. I think we've described, and I've tried to give you an insight earlier today around how we're leveraging terrestrial networks, and we're using an off-the-shelf LTE solution to deliver our capacity and deliver the high throughputs and services to you. I think the next upgrade in the network, we will see better performing terminals as a result of new waveforms. Whether it will be something more as an open standard like DVB-S2X or a 5G standard remains to be seen today. But the big benefit that 5G will deliver to the satellite operator, OneWeb in particular, is the virtualization of the RAN and making the network as cost efficient as possible to drive down costs to the end user ultimately.
I would say complementary at this point between 5G and Leo. Yeah, I don't really have much to add.
Okay, because I think one of the conversations that I've been hearing, people talk about is actually terminal prices.
Is that why I've been dragged up? As I previously mentioned on my presentation, speak with your favoured DP for pricing. Yeah, it's for us, and certainly for Kai Meta and Hughes.
So guys are saying the adoption will primarily depend on the entry point, the price point,
yep.
And this will be determined largely by the cost of the terminal.
Yeah, and that is a high barrier to entry in maritime as well. We see it. So what happens in maritime, and I think this is the leasing model, is to spread the cost over X amount of years and make money back that way. I think that would be an option. I mean, certainly from our point of view, as Intellian, we've invested a lot and we've tried to make our production as vertically integrated as possible, so we own that chain, so we're not paying third-party suppliers, we're not having to include third-party products, which will be able to bring down our costs to much lower levels, and it's all about scale. So, we're in contract discussions with the likes of OneWeb because they put down the initial POs to back us what we're doing. And if we can prove that we can manufacture tens of thousands of terminals, which we can, then that will drive down the cost. Certainly where we're sat now, we're in a better position than what we were 2 years ago. The price of chipsets have gone back to a normal range now, which they weren't 2 years ago because of COVID and the war in Ukraine, as well as freight costs. Shipping terminals to Rotterdam from Korea, for example, was astronomical over the past 12 to 18 months, but that's dropped again. It's normalised now. So that helps us to bring down our cost, because we're not price gougers. We want to enable, and we know that high volume, especially on the flat panel, will lead to better profits for us as a business. And at the end of the day, that's what we're in it for, right? So we're going to position it right and as low cost as possible. And certainly with the parabolic, as I was mentioning over there, compared to what our maritime VSAT terminals are, these are a fraction of the price, and you're getting it's a dual dome solution. So we're trying to maximize and be as efficient as possible to make sure that it is affordable, and there isn't a high barrier to entry, but there are costs associated, and we have to make a bit of margin. I need my bonus. but that's just part and parcel of it. So we are trying to make it as affordable as possible the competition as we see it, which is over there, or the likes of Starlink as well, which is heavily subsidized. Will that last forever? I'm not so sure. So that's how we're pitching it.
Okay. Anybody who wants to chip onto that?
One of you can say Intellian's really well priced.
And they're really reliable as well.
Thank you. I needed that. I needed some backup there.
Maybe I can throw this to Vanit and Hannes. What would be the selling point for the enterprise, for Leo? Why would they need? Why should they dump their existing solutions to jump onto Leo, for instance?
Reliability, and as we've pointed out earlier on, the proof is going to be in the pudding to see what the reliability is going to look like. But if we can gauge it anything from a geo point of view, yes, it should be as reliable. To say this is the technology I would want to consider, because yes, fiber is the best thing since sliced bread, but it's not reliable, and we've proven that with the undersea cable outages over and over. In Africa, we felt it very hard with long-time outages. So with that is definitely going to be a selling point, and then capacity. What can be done, what can be achieved from a throughput point of view. If I'm listening to, if the Gen 2 is going to be looking at gigabits per second type of throughputs, those are the selling points.
I agree. I think reliability is important, and the MTTR, let me put it that way, it has to be much less than a submarine cable, because if there's an outage on subsea, it takes more than 2 months or even 3 months to, depending on the location where it is. And also terrestrial fiber also comes with its own pros and cons. So reliability, definitely. The other thing which I think the enterprises, and we deal with a lot of large enterprises in India and otherwise as well, is how scalable is the solution for, and how future ready is the solution, right? So which means again coming back to what are the bandwidths which we can scale up to. That's one. The second point which the enterprises look at is since they are running multiple applications and there are multiple clouds hosted at multiple locations across the world now, it's not on-prem setup of an enterprise anymore. So how ready is this technology? And I heard there are SD-WAN versions as well on the hardware side. How ready this technology is to take care of, a multi-cloud connect, for example, or SD-WAN intelligence being brought into, or a SASE or a SSC, which the enterprises are talking more and more. So I think as the enterprises mature to be asking for those kind of solutions, that's where the answer should be coming from the Leo technology, that yes, we are ready for this, and it's a comparable solution to a fiber, more reliable for sure. The MTTR, the mean time to repair, is much lower than a fiber. So I think those will be the selling points of to increase the adoption. Otherwise, I think just like we have a MPLS and the backup is a internet, this will remain a backup, or it will go as a primary only when there is no connectivity in a far-flung area. Like there are still many of those, but are there really a need of an enterprise? Is the question.
I want to open this to the audience. Is there anybody who wants to ask a question to the panel or wants to contribute?
On this being a complementary service to existing fiber and existing network, and in the same breath I hear a lot of conversation of this being a standalone service. So what is it really going to be? Is it going to be complementary or standalone? That is my question, because it really does make sense if it is standalone in a much wider perspective than when you talk about it as a complementary service.
Well, it can be both, right? It's at the end, it's just an IP service, so it can be both complementary and a standalone service.
But what would give it the best? What would be the best positioning for it?
We're just a toolkit in a distribution partner's arsenal of solutions. We're not claiming to be the one-size-fits-all solution, and I'm not going to try and make you replace your high-capacity SCPC links or your MEO SCPC links, because I can't really deliver that at a cost-affordable price point for you. We will find the point where it fits within your portfolio and become as a spanner in your toolkit to make it work.
Thank you.
I think to add on that, with OneWeb coming, what you'll find most enterprises will do, if you have different locations, you'll not go and replace all your existing infrastructure right now. Assume you have fiber or microwave, then you go to Starlink. What will happen is, let's say you have like 10 locations. You'll test with one for a period of time. If the service is good, the reliability is good, and the cost is good, you add another one, In a span of 2-3 years, becomes the main service. So we'll see that migration. You'll not see an immediate migration like somebody moving together, like you're testing the river with both of your feet. You'll dip one foot, then you test, it's like, it's okay, the service is good, they're reliable. Then it will shift being a complementary to a standalone or the main service based on the metrics that will be there. And it can be a whole journey depending on how OneWeb gives us the service. If they get it right, they'll move in quite fast. If they make a mistake, it will take a long time for it to be adopted. And that's how the customers vote.
Hari, maybe I can say something?
Yeah, I wanted to just maybe add to that, and on the point of will it stand alone or complementary, and I want to lean maybe a bit more to a complementary one, for the simple reason that today I cannot go and offer a service, or let's call it a backup service, to a fiber operator from a satellite point of view. They will not listen to me because their customers' applications won't work. The amount of capacity that can be used per site is just not there that they would require. But now you can go to a fiber operator and say, consider this as a backup, or consider this to extend your network, because the geo market today cannot offer that to them, but this can. So not just being standalone, but these guys will start adopting LEO as a supplementary service to their own networks.
To add to this, Pramit, I think it also depends on which industry you are targeting, right? In a maritime, it could be a standalone service, right? Because you're straight away VSAT replacement, you can do it with it. And again, as I agree with my colleague that it will start with a complementary service for now, but there are a few niche, like even airlines for that matter. I don't see a reason why it can't be a standalone service, because today who is offering on in-sky Wi-Fi, right? Very few airlines. There's a huge market to be addressed, and I think it could be a standalone service from that standpoint. Absolutely.
Yeah, so yeah, I think I agree to some degree. For us as enterprise, I think the biggest contributor, and I go back to the message that Rakesh put to us in the morning. He said, look, he's enabling business, and more importantly also is coming as a partner, all right? The B2B aspect that OneWeb is approaching, it is going to enable us as providers to meet and reach our customers where we typically could not reach them. And just something as simple as we're trying to understand where the S&P will sit for Kenya. So let me give you an example. There's a lot of our customers who actually have their data sitting in data centers within Nairobi and Mombasa for regulatory purposes, okay? And they do a lot of services from there, but the fact that they're potentially unreachable in a location where they're on the geo VSAT means that for any consumption of that service, it's going to take much longer, and they don't take advantage of that speed. So with Leo coming in, now then they have quicker latency into those local data centers, and they're able to actually do what they need to do, work faster. But I think for us, my view is it's complementary, especially for me to be able to reach my customers who are not typically able to reach. You know, we have the multi-site customers who, you know, like the NGOs. I remember I was in Uganda one time, and they told me that they have a farm of NGOs, 6 or 7 of them, that need connectivity, reliable connectivity in the middle of nowhere. It was in the time there was the troubles in South Sudan. So they had a refugee site far off. At that time, I didn't have an option. That was, you know, other than Geo, which would have higher latency. But now, I think we have an option to be able to provide that to complement potentially what you're already providing for them in Kampala, for example, or in Nairobi, which is fiber. So I think it's complementary, and I think the approach, as always, is identify what your customers require, what their needs are, and then fit into the solution that best fits into what you need the service you need to offer for them. But it works through partnership, and the B2B approach for OneWeb and iSAT makes a lot of sense for us, in my view.
So in terms of disruption, I think it's pretty much evident that this is a huge disruption. I'm affected directly. When we set up China Mobile in Africa, our first customer was a satellite customer in Eritrea that we were charging about $2,000 per MB for the whole country. We were providing about 100 Mbps for the whole country, and we were charging them $2,000. Last year, a LEO provider came and wiped us out of Eritrea. So it's very disrupted and affecting us. In terms of going forward and where it's going to play, my view is that I think fiber is still King Kong in terms of connectivity. So fiber is still going to be a king. But where I see this play is identify, especially people who are going to be very successful with this, is identifying niche markets that they can dominate and charge premium. So niche markets like maritime was talking about, like aviation, like NGOs, like mining. There's a lot of mining going on, especially in Africa, that don't have connectivity. So a lot of the miners, the ones we work with are mostly owned by Chinese, and they need to talk to people. The reason why we're very successful in Eritrea, because a lot of miners there are Chinese, the operations are made by Chinese, but they need to talk to their people. They need to watch videos or internet. They need to get to entertain from their content back in China. So we'd put some accelerators. We'd give them 2-3 MBs of internet and then put accelerators so that it can be able to accelerate the internet. And internet for them was like water. So they really relied on this water. So I think for guys who are going to be very successful in this, to identify a niche market and dominate and charge premium on that niche market. Otherwise, we were talking with Kadambara in the morning, and one of the challenges in Africa is device pricing. So we are seeing this from 4G and 5G devices that even though we have been having 4G for 10 years right now, but hardly 30% of 40% of Safaricom's network, they're not using 4G devices because of 4G pricing. So I'm curious to understand from the panel, especially, what do you think is the best price point for Leo to get into, so that they can be able to break in and disrupt the market as they are supposed to?
I don't sell airtime anymore.
That's Nish's
I've
job.
been there, seen it, and done it. Thank you. I wouldn't say maritime's a niche market by any stretch, to be honest, because there's it's got thousands of partners, and I have to look after them. Yeah, I can speak from maritime, but the price point is where it always is, as low as possible, because they're all price crocodiles, so you can't really exploit that. It's been done now. The cost per bit has dropped so much. It's the way of and I imagine it's the same across other sectors as well. And now that there's more competition, fiber's going to have to change. Potentially, they'll have to shift because there's competition now. So that's how I see it. There's no specific niche I would talk about.
My personal view, I'm not an expert on this hardware at all, but I think today in the fiber world, there are a couple of hardwares which are deployed at the customer equipment. It's the normal CPE which you deploy, or the SD-WAN equipment. And I think if the price points of Leo are in line with those hardwares, and the price points of those, they are in the $2,000 to $5,000 range, I think the fiber guys will really have the run for their money.
Probably a question for Safaricom. A couple of questions. Since you see this as you were mentioning that it is a cost, right? The cost of a Leo 1 versus the existing microwave way you use it. But don't you see that with this cost, probably you can bring down the cost of your site capex? You don't need the traditional, the 40 meter or 50 meter sites anymore. You can have a much smaller site. Would this increase the volume? And is there a scope for you to kind of replace far-flung sites where currently you're having microwaves and backbones to bring your backhaul with this networks? I mean, it is a common question for all operators.
Yeah, there is that opportunity, and I was discussing with Lindsay here, trying to understand how many of their orbiting satellites have gone down. I was looking for reliability because I wanted to see how reliable the system is, because I'm looking at replacement of some of the existing infrastructure, for example, especially on the geo where the cost per megahertz is quite high. I'm not able to do 4G and 5G very well. I'm giving just bare minimum experience. Well, I would give a wow experience just because of the costs. So there's that possibility, and that is one of the key things you are looking for in the Leo. I'll give you a good example. One hospital in Nairobi wanted some real-time communication with one of their remote places in northern Kenya. So the solution we had for them was satellite. Tested 2 months, they were not happy. We had to build 2 sites to create a line of sight so that we can do microwaves. And that costed us around 40 million Kenya shillings, which is around $300,000 just for that. If we had Leo at that particular time, you would not have needed that capex.
Yes, exactly.
You understand, eh? So this is how it is changing the game. And you see, they had to commit and say, our financial will also pay for this because we require it. We tried all means, there's nobody who could cover it, but we went and covered it through several sites. Not that we needed those sites, they were just repeater hubs so that we can get the line of sight for microwave, and then we can be able to cover them. So it is a real game changer, and we're also seeing that it will reduce our capex. We don't need those extreme heights whereby we can get those heights, not for GSM but for microwave. So it is a real game changer, and we're embracing it. That's why he's seated next to me. I need more information.
So I can confirm that our antenna is cheaper than $300,000. I can say that on the record.
So it's like a trade-off between capex and opex at the end of the day, right? it's going to be a trade-off between the capex and the opex. So
Yes.
multiple sites with tall towers is going to be kind of the past when you can actually replace this.
Yes,
And
exactly. Yeah, I don't need a lot of capex to bring all this.
yeah, but the opex in the initial stages may be a little bit higher, but with volumes growing,
Yeah.
I'm sure the opex also would come
Yeah,
down.
yeah. And hopefully with a lot of competition with also Starlink also, they will also bring it down.
Awesome. Anybody else with a contribution or a question?
Maybe just a comment.
Okay.
I'll just share a case study. I was in Kansas City and we drove to upcountry. This was just post-COVID, where government wanted every businesses which have not done well, so they should refund some money in taxes or something they have paid. And they were trying to promote gig economy, where they wanted people from New York, Washington, if they belong to that county, they should come and work from home. So that county, which was mainly the farming and wasn't doing well, they wanted those executives to come back. So that trading and other activities should start. People will buy cars and stuff, and they will buy grocery. Surprisingly, they could not invite a single executive because people claim the internet is not working. I'm talking about United States, yeah. And then they called all the operators saying, can you roll out some fancy stuff that we invite these people? They said, yes, give us 6-8 months because we have to bring the backbone. That country has a unique problem that because of they don't give exclusivity and monopoly, it's totally divided on the responsibilities, and by the time government was thinking what to do, the COVID was almost gone. They probably found it easy to print US dollars and distribute, and I think that's what they did. They have their own printing press, unlike us. Now imagine, in case of any disaster or any faster deployment, like hospital, yes, you could have done that $300,000 in a better way if you had a time of 1 year or 2 years to plan. But you didn't have time, so you had to deploy the expensive part. But the satellite, the advantage is, number one, it does not have 29 different point of failures which terrestrial has to reach to the destination, which means it is more reliable. Second is this faster deployment. If hospital wants to test it, I drive tomorrow, I install, I do, and they say, okay, it is working, and they keep it. Probably the Kansas County could have also brought the executives from Washington, and they could have been living there, but they lost the opportunity. Every opportunity window is very limited. So sometimes people say, let's wait and watch and see what happens. They will not be the player anymore. Let's look at the car that I saw when I was in my childhood and the car that I bought 5-6 years back. There's hardly any difference. It's the same steering, same 4 wheels and stuff and all, except some fancy features. It has the GPS and stuff, but car in general had not changed. There is no way you can bring the disruption by keep repeating and putting some fancy things till the time the electrical vehicle comes, and then you say disruption. Yes, we really have to adopt today by saying yes, it is something that we have to bring the change, and that comes by accepting that yes, we have to bring the change. If you wait and watch, somebody else is taking that opportunity. The window is very close, period. I mean, it will not last for long for us to think about it. And if we all believe, let's give a shot. I believe in this partnership program. Thanks, Patrick, for saying that and reminding. We really like to see that wherever we have challenges, let's do it together and let's win it together. That's how I see this opportunity window as available.
Thank you, Rakesh. Now, I'm torn because Rakesh almost beat me up the other day because I wrote an article about Starlink. So he was like, how can you write a story about Starlink and you're moderating a OneWeb event? Then I was like, but I needed to share something. Lindsay, can you please demystify this Starlink, OneWeb story?
Well, Starlink provides internet. We don't. No, I mean, I can provide an internet connection, and I can provide an internet connection as cheap as the service that Starlink is going to deliver and offer to the market. And so can our distribution partners, if they wanted to deliver a pretty trashy service. There's no good offering saying, I'm not going to tell you my maximum theoretical capacity is 195 megabits. I'm not going to sell you 195 megabits. I'm going to sell you what I can practically sell you as a rightful deliverable CIR and SLA attached with penalties. And if I don't meet them, then who you're going to call up Nishta and she's going to get penalized, whereas you can't do that with a direct to consumer type service. There's no support structure that the distribution partners can even access to reach out to Starlink when they're having problems. So they put up with it for a while, and then instead of customers getting the promised 300 megabits, magically the service specification updates and changes it to 40 to 80 megabits, depending on where you are. But we're not in the business of degrading the service like that. We want to make the services as high a quality as possible that people want to use it and deliver.
So from my experience with Starlink and the partners that I manage in the ecosystem who have made very large commitments to Starlink, they are desperate to move on from it already because they are not making any money from it at all. I think it's about 6% margin, and they make nothing on the user terminals, and they're desperate for OneWeb. So, you know, we talk about partner ecosystem and looking out for each other, your iSAT Africas, your Intellians, your OneWebs. You know, we're all part of this ecosystem together. Starlink is not part of that, and it never will be. You'll make a commitment to them. You'll have to buy thousands of terminals, and you'll have to pay it within 14 days, which is just not the business model that any of us can really operate. You know, I would so that's clear to me of which direction this is going. And as we're seeing in maritime now, I think as soon as the OneWeb trials go well, which are in practice now, and it's a full global CSI at the end of the year, I can see that some of the Starlinks will start to get removed and people will go for a CIR because they're used to CIR. Geo offers CIR. You know, Inmarsat has offered it for years with GX, and people expect that now, and you will get that from OneWeb.
Okay, the elephant is out of the room. Okay. All right, so I think I want to close this. So maybe quick closing remarks from that end.
Thank you, Harry, and thank you for this forum. I think for me, I would say we are keenly waiting for OneWeb. Very anxious, actually, to see what alternatives you can give us, because we need alternatives. And as has been said, the cost per MB has been coming down. We've seen in the last 2 years in Kenya, the cost per MB has come down by around 64%. So you can't afford doing business at high costs and your price is going down. So you're also looking at reliability and cost. So we'll be keenly following and hopefully we'll be part of it. Thank you.
So my closing comment is, this is not a pipe dream. Are you, Leo, ready?
I think we look forward to this partnership which we have relished with iSAT for so many years. And with Leo coming into the overall portfolio, I think it only helps us sell more globally to locations which we were declining earlier, or to the segments which we were ignoring earlier. And I think we see it as a positive upside for us as an organization as well, especially the region which I take care of, which is Africa and Middle East, Central Asia.
Yeah, I think my closing comment is this is exciting times. There is stuff to talk to customers about. There's stuff we can show them stuff now that's exciting and that we never thought was going to be possible. So yeah, but like Rakesh was mentioning very truly, is that we have a limited time window and we need to move.
I completely agree with that comment as well, is that the time is now. The disruption is here. So I would move quickly if I was you. And it's all very exciting. I think the opportunities that are going to come from this are going to be incredible for thousands and millions of people. And it's just great to be part of it from my perspective and as an ambassador for Intellian. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, guys. It's been nice. Yeah, big round of applause for them. I'm thinking maybe you can refill your coffees. Those who are having wine can refill their wine. Yes, you can. And then we move into the next panel discussion. So please feel free. There's coffee there, tea, coffee. Wine is on the other side. Grab your glass, grab your cup, then you come back. And meanwhile, please, Patrick, you will be on my panel. Just grab your stuff, then you can come. Rakesh, Nishta, Henrich, and Coyote.